Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Matthew 11. Okay. Hi. I'll be showing some shots. First, wrong throat. Hate that. I just said that before. Of course. Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Sign the kingdom, power, glory, yours now and forever. In your name, your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, Rapid City, South Dakota. Today I have an important message. I have a lot of stuff, but a good friend of ours had a very good friend. You could say his best friend die from COVID recently, and he's another brother, and his friend is another brother. So he knows, as I told him, he went to Tahiti before him. So it's not like he's not going to be seeing. He knows he's going to see him again, but that doesn't deflect the pain and the loss. The pain and the loss. I knew where my father was going. Knew where he was going. Was actually happy to see him die. And you're talking about a man who did tremendous amounts of things. And he died. He was only 47. And yet, like I say, he was about 63 pounds when he died. I was carrying him around. Okay. And, but he was still there. I would come home and I could still sit with him for about a half an hour from school and talk with him before I went to practice. I used to change in my house. I didn't even bother go to the locker room. I just because my house was between both high schools. It's really close. And then after I'd come home and I talked to him, things like it was. He was always there in that chair. He couldn't see at that time. He had at sometimes il- uh, illusions, which I taught him how to cope. He would have um, things to where he would be screaming out loud, saying, "What's wrong with you? Get this tractor off me!" He had these hallucinations that looked real to him, and they were manifesting themselves real in his life reality. But because of his medical condition, it was really just a kind of dream state. Anyway, he didn't show fear, but he showed fear a lot of times. And he was like, "What do you do? Why won't you get this tractor off of me?" I said, and he knew because he was already been blind for about a year and a half. I said, "Dad, can you see the tractor?" He was quiet because he then realized that if he could see this tractor, it wasn't real. Now, I didn't say use this as a tool because I know he was way smart enough to realize that. But um, you could see a show of fear on his face, and then a share of, okay, no, I can use this as a tool to tell me what's real and what's not. But that didn't get him over the pain. See, the pain that he was feeling in his body was was manifesting itself in his brain as these hallucinations to quantify the pain that he was feeling. This is, of course, my theory, you know, but I would say from my own experiences, from what I've had, that was the basic of that. Anyway, let's get to it. Okay, I wish you guys. I want you guys to turn to Matthew 11:25. Okay. At the time, Jesus answered, said, "I thank you, Father, Lord in heaven, Jehovah." Right? There's Jehovah God, his son is sitting at his right hand, the Father. But here, when he's on the planet, he is human. Okay. Heaven and earth, you have hidden these things from the wise and prudent and have revealed them to babes. Even so, Father, so it seemed good in your sight. All things have been delivered to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except for the Son, and the one whom the Son wills to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So all of us need to rest, and Jesus promises to give it to us. When we find our rest in Him, He will not scold us for being weak or scam us for being foolish. He promises to gently and humbly refresh our weary souls. And that goes along with all of your burdens. Okay. And I'm going to give examples of that. Okay. in many instances in my life. Um, I have made some notes. Hold on a second. So, what I say this is how to take a problem to God. Tell him, humble before him. He knows already. He's omniscient, he's omnipresent, all that kind of stuff. You must surrender the pain and the burden to God. Let him take it. He might tell you in your heart what he might want you to do, for God can require it as a payment, which is really to your benefit. Okay. I'm going to explain that. And several stories. You guys like my stories? Okay. So I have a neighbor here, and for years in the beginning, I did not get along with him. Okay. Not only did I not get along with him, he legitimately hated everything about us, hated the noise because we built a pool and we used to have parties and my sons and I have an open fire pit, yes, got a screen on and everything else, and I would be constantly using my smoker and everything else, and he'd complain bitterly, calling the police, everything. And so, I mean, to where he'd get purple in the face with hatred. One time he actually collapsed, okay, having a tantrum and a fit, okay. And he would call me fat, expletives and whatnot. So I think it was Irene. Yeah, it was Irene. And Irene hit him. And I remember I was outside with my dog Trip at the time. And I was literally standing on my patio and I saw the transformer literally. Okay. I saw the transformer blow up. Boom. Okay. And I knew that once that happened, then the other M80 fuse would blow, which it did. And then our lights would go out. And then it would be about 23 seconds for my automatic wh- whole house generator to start. Hopefully, it would start, which it did. Okay. Um, and I'm like, well, that's it. I was waiting. And so my whole house generator is literally, it runs on natural gas. Okay. And it powers the entire house. I mean, the pool, air conditioners, hot tub, you name it. This the wife literally she doesn't even know. Okay. As a matter of fact, what she would do is we'd usually fire up the freezer at the time downstairs, which we would have empty. We have we have a refrigerator freezer and a separate freezer, and then we make ice. Anyway, so God put it in my heart, very similar to the way He communicates. And the more you do this, the more you listen to God, the easier you will find that He uses humans all over the place to communicate to help His children. Okay, and He says, take your orange 12-foot, 100-foot extension cord and run it to Alex next door. I really don't want to do this. I mean, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I can't tell you to the 15th power. I don't want to do this. Okay. But I've learned to listen. So I get my boys and, no, actually, it was just James. And by his way to County, it's just James. And I run this cord out through my garage and to his house, and I put a thing on it, and I knock on his door, and I say, "Alex, I'm here, and I'm gonna give you power." It turned out that the guy had cancer, and he was underneath specific treatment, to which that he had his cancer drugs in his refrigerator, and he needed desperately to keep them cool. So he was almost in tears, and it turned out he was a Christian. And it was an unbelievable moment that changed dramatically our relationship. I mean, like a like the sharpest Japanese knife. Woof. And yeah, so I explained to him. I said, you can run, your microwave, you can run your coffee maker, you can run all this other stuff. Just run one thing at a time, and you could still run, your TV, things like that, light, you know, because it's only one extension cord. And I said, further, I said it's running 100 feet. Okay. And even though it's a 12-3 extension cord, it's still 100 feet. So V equals IR, and there's going to be a specific drop in the voltage because of the 100 feet. And that increases the resistance. So you can't run the full 20 amps that it's plugged into on the outlet that I plugged into. Separate circuit, 20 amps, because it'll burn up before it pops the breaker. Okay. And he knew this, and he via now we were out of power. Okay. From Irene, longer than saying we were out of power for almost a month, 5 weeks, really. Okay. So for 5 weeks, he had that light and the refrigerator and other stuff. Me, of course, I spotlights on, and my wife is setting up a line. She's handing out ice. She saves every single Chinese takeout food container known to mankind, and she's filling them up with water and handing them out as ice. That's one example. Okay, and there are just so many. Now, another example of me burdening God was right after my stroke, and he sent me back into I was dead for over 5 minutes. Found out from my records, and he sends me back, and the warfarin was causing retina bleeding in my eyes. To which that I woke up Wednesday, and I couldn't see. I was blind. Now that's exactly how my father went blind. Up to this point, I was praying for my son who was on deployment. Okay. He had lost a friend who hit the water at over 900 knots. Long story. But the point was, I'm like, don't worry about me. Just take care of my boy, because I know that he's doing very dangerous stuff. I vehemently told my wife and his wife, I said, whatever you do not tell him of my condition, because I don't want him burdened with that. Yeah, he's trying to land on carriers and need this crap running in his head. Can't do anything. Okay. Anyway, so I said, please. So I said, oh no, please, God, please, please don't do this to me. Don't, please don't. I know you can take care of this. I'm putting it on you. And then he put it into my heart. Call your mother, call your sister. I won't get into the details of you can see other videos where I get it, but I do what he says. I call my mother and I call my sister, and my sister makes the agreement that when she's up here with my mother, I think like 3 weeks hence from that part time, she's gonna bring mom to see me, and she's gonna see me and whatever. It was for Michael's graduation. Anyway, I'm like, okay, great. And Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. I put my full heart into it. I did what he said. I didn't want to do it. Oh boy, did I not want to do it. I did not want to call my mother. I did not want to, you know, give her an apologize and try to didn't want to surrender that. Didn't want to. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. Friday comes and they're going to operate with a laser beam. The obstetrician is going to operate and cauterize the blood vessels in my eyes to stop the hemorrhaging. She comes and Friday, my eyes are totally clear, like there was absolutely no blood in them at all. Again, documented miracle. Okay. Like, yeah. So God will um truly give you that knot at the end of that rope and then put his arms around you and take you back. Okay. And I've had it happen many, many times. Now, I'm going to talk about, Jim, I'm going to talk about that. Okay. But in order for us to talk about that, we have to discuss why World War I happened, why World War II happened. The biggest criminal thievery started in 1903, and it's probably the reason why the Titanic was taken down and sunk. Because one of the people who died on the Titanic did not want to go ahead and build this Federal Reserve Bank, which, by the way, is as federal as FedExpress. Okay, they are not federal. They are a private bank, and they make money out of nothing. It's an entire con. It's unbelievable. It's just like this. Um, I have to watch what I say. Mm. Mm. Well, if you looked at my video, it was taken down off of. I think it was taken down to YouTube. It's on um, my Odyssey channel, and please subscribe, join, and go to it. Buffering is on your end because I'm seeing. I literally have an LTE connection here, and it's totally clear. Hold on, testing connection here, and it's yeah. See, it's working fine. So no, my yeah. If I said what I was gonna say, you're gonna say hey problems. So I'm not saying that. Instead, I'm gonna say that I have a video about the reality of banking and the reality of what's going on and the essentially the greatest theft. Now, by them coming up with the fiat currency, they turned around and they started um, funding the wars on both sides. This is what the bankers do. Okay. And they make a fortune. They put countries into huge debts so that their populations are enslaved to pay the taxes and the debts back. They did it in World War One. They did it in World War Two. Okay, you'll find out that Prescott, Ford, and others funded the November Party. Okay, and built them up. Okay, so that Money, 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 money. Because you see, the whole world went into debt, and then because of the huge World War II effects in Europe, we then go ahead and give them loans that they never pay back. Again, the debt has to go on top of us to rebuild them. So instead of rebuilding our factories and retooling our factories, putting new, no, they do that in Europe. They put all new tooling in, they put all new stuff in. So of course they become a competitor to us. And who loans and finances both sides? Yep. Now, for a time, our um, money was based on gold, but what they did was in 19, I think it was 38, they basically wrote a law, and FDR went, might have been early, I don't know exactly. Doesn't matter. You know, when they literally confiscated all the gold. Okay. Then they confiscated all the silver dollars. Isn't it amazing? Um, so, and then they supposedly melted it down and they paid you pennies for it because as soon as they did this, then all of a sudden gold was literally doubled its worth. Okay. And um, since the beginning of World War II to the end to now, the Rothschilds' supposedly net worth just in gold bullion is over $130 trillion, which is just like, it's just pure evil. I mean, I have no problem if somebody makes that kind of money and they're uh, spending, you know, 90% of it on all kinds of things, on research and development, on space, moon bases, and you name it, to benefit, and the spin-offs benefit everybody. Okay. But to have a room where it's just sitting is it's just pure evil. Okay. Because it doesn't do anybody any good. Okay. At all. It's kind of like De Beers and its diamonds. Okay. Diamonds are actually so plentiful that they've filled like regular airplane hangars, multiple of them, to where that, to try to keep the price up. Yeah. And now you have people who are artificially um yeah, Jim Foreman, that's the sun is not going to explode. Okay. The sun was going to have a Carrington event type flare. Okay. KP 100 flare. Had it in 1859. It's definitely due. Our magnetic field has decreased by 22%. And the solar activity is not even at its peak. It's another 5.5 years away from its peak. And we've been getting hit, and we're getting hit right at this moment with a CME, and going to get hit with another one tomorrow. Okay. Mild, but still causing effects. So your friend is wrong. Okay. And there have been sighting of CMEs that would send this planet. Now, remember, biologically, it's not going to hurt you. I'm talking about technology wise. It's going to take out your electricity, okay, and your electrical communication, your internet, things like this, okay, and cause such an ionosphere solar storm that most of the radios and satellites will not work in that area, if not short them out entirely, okay, such as SpaceX lost 40 Starlinks. Look it up. It's real, okay, really happened. No, 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 no. A coronal mass ejection. There's been already this year and last year. There's been KP 100, huge coronal mass ejections, but they missed us. They either went off. There was one that just went off and knocked the crap out of Mercury and Mars. Okay, um, so It's shooting. Okay, don't believe me. Look up the facts. Okay, now we've gotten hit with mild ones, which took out specific quadrants of power, but nothing like the one that hit in 1859. Okay, the one that hit in 1859 happens basically every 150 years. Okay, and it's happened. They've examined tree rings. They see the evidence. This is fact. They see the evidence every 12,500 years. There's a really major event. Okay. They've analyzed the rocks in the Grand Canyon for this. So, no. Uh, no, your friend is wrong. Okay. The papers that were filed and put top secrets, the Chan Thomas novel, which was declared top secret by the CIA in 1962, which they released, but they still kept 125 pages from being released, still to this day. Okay, just like they wanted to take the FISA documents and release them 40 years from now. What good would they be? Well, now a court order, we're seeing what those documents are all about, and we're seeing what exactly is really going on. Okay, and why they're all insistent on having us get vaccinated multiple times. So it's kind of like this game I play at the Jake's 58. It's a virtual blackjack game. I actually do very well on it. But what I don't do is I don't do the side bets because I've run the numbers on everything. You can actually download the program that this actual machine runs on because since it runs in Nevada, Nevada Gaming Commission puts it on public domain and literally prints the code on what this machine is running on. You can actually run the code yourself, which I actually did. Skipping that. Um, I don't bet on those because they're between 4 and 10% of the house. Okay, that's why this virtual deal is always saying, "Don't forget the side bets. Don't forget the side bet." Yeah, it's not. You want to forget the side bets. It's kind of like why you don't take insurance. It's insurance unless you're counting is a sucker bet, and don't take insurance because guess what? It will tell them that you're counting. Just like you never split tens. Why? Because if you split tens, you're telling them you're either an idiot or you're counting. So yeah, just no, it's called the Carrington event was mild. Yeah, yeah. Only telegraph wires, and it also they saw they saw the aurora borealis down in Cuba and Hawaii. It's very pretty seeing all those colors in the sky. Now, again, biologically, no big deal, right? But we are not the same. We don't run on steam and wood and things like this. Which is what they were running on back then. We run on mostly electric. Okay, if you look at the population of 9 billion people, yes, I'm saying it, 9 billion people worldwide. I would say about 8.5, 8 billion need electricity one way or the other for either transportation or manufacturing food in some way, okay, to stay alive. And when that gets taken out, it's like forget about it. I mean, just think about what you would do if you didn't have electricity for a month and then multiply that for 10 months or maybe a year. Oof. Okay. But not only you, everybody around you has no electricity. That means no water, no drugs, no refrigeration, no sanitation. Mm, okay. Trump went to the Congress and told them and wanted to harden the electrical grid. The Democrats voted it down. Why did they vote it down? Georgia Guidestones, maybe? It's not a conducive thing to have your power go out worldwide unless you wanted what? Now, you see, they believe the big lie. Okay. They're going to be safe in their bunkers. They're not. Okay. They're not going to be safe. But you see, they think they're going to be safe. So it doesn't matter because these are people that believe the lie. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, she's 500 million. Exactly. Okay. This is what they want. Okay. Trump put an end to a lot of this stuff, and then they went back and did the Charlie Oscar Utah poll and put it on steroids. That's what's happening now with the United States Navy. Okay. Um, what Obama and Biden started, they're now doing it to the 20th power and then some. And then they put in this new directive, which you must give the proper pronouns and handled it. Now I want to explain something to you. Okay, you're on a submarine or a ship or whatever, and all of a sudden it becomes wartime conditions, and you cannot resupply. Okay, or even if you could, would you want 35 pounds of hormones so that you can keep your proper hormone level on your um, LGBTQ community in your ship? Or would you want 35 pounds of food or 35 pounds of other medical saving drugs such as penicillin, things like that, or 35 pounds of ammo? See what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, the Gates Foundation, it's one of the people who literally doubled their net worth. And I find that to be where did that money come from? Came from us. Okay. The inflation that you now see is paying for their new raised debts where they bought assets at prices and now they're paying off those assets with inflated dollars. By doing that, the inflated dollars are worth 20% less. So they're getting 20% VIG on whatever they bought of a real hard asset, and they're paying it off with dollars that are worth less, which is essentially a tax burden to you. You Do you think that they worry about flying their corporate jets and they worry about going on their 120-foot yachts that burn insane amounts of fuel and whatnot? No. Okay, they don't worry about it. But you worry about going to the regular gas station and putting $50 in your tank. Gas here is $5.74. I don't know what gas is by you, but gas here is $5.74. Okay. Stock up on food commodities, flour, wheat. What you do with flour is very simple. You take flour, you buy it as much as you can, you throw it into the freezer, keep it in the freezer about 3 days. Then take it out of the freezer, and then if you have a vacuum sealer, you can vacuum seal it. If you don't, put it into a bowl jar and seal it, and then kind of put it in your oven on about 100 degrees, 120 degrees, then take it out, close the lid. That'll create a vacuum because it's hot, cold. Um, doesn't have to be that warm, but then you can store that flour, I don't know, 5, 6 years easy. The freezing and keeping it in the freezer for 4 days kills the weevils. Okay. The ice crystals on a microscopic level is like a knife to the cell wall. Um, you can't believe the media because the media wants World War III. They want World War III because the bankers told them that's what they want. The they want World War III because they got to do something about this runaway inflation and debt, and they have to blame it on something. They can't blame it on their big ripoff because it's been a tremendous ripoff. When you see multiple billionaires double their net worth overnight, literally double their net worth, okay? Think about it, double, okay? So they were already worth 125, 130 billion. Now they're worth 240 billion. Okay. So they didn't increase it by 20%. They literally doubled it. Okay. Now, now the worst things are happening. Okay. Which is, and I told you this before, I told you that there was already agreements between the Arabs, Chinese, Russians, other states, basically OPEC. They started trading in SDRs, getting out of the petrodollar, breaking an agreement, by the way, which cost us an insane amount of lives and blood and treasure that another Nazi set up, which was Kissinger, um, putting us on the petrodollar because Nixon got off the gold standard. And that's why I always said to you, energy is the real money because that's really always the truth. Okay. You can't, as much as I would love to, I mean, I bought this. It was, I think it was $13 when I bought it. Okay. $13. It's now $25, they say. Um, but it really doesn't matter because I can't eat it. Okay. So to me, the food that I have, the other types of items that I have, other types of commodities that I have, other types of metal that I have are worth more to me than that. Um, the other thing that's worth more to me, uh, that's a picture of my son and my grandson Callahan. What I'd like to ask you guys, and I'm asking you guys for a favor, is for you guys to, I'll try to find. Mm, just bear with me a second. I'm just trying to find a picture that's appropriate. Um, God can make anything happen. And one thing that I really want God to do, and I don't ask Him for much, but I would like Him to um, give my son this position, the position of being an, a test pilot instructor at Bax River. That's the guy who's the lieutenant commander. So I would appreciate your prayers to make that happen. So make this guy an instructor at Pax River. He's now an instructor down in Pensacola, and I would very much appreciate that. He's probably one of the top 100 aviators the Navy's got. On his last deployment, he flew 1.5 times more than any other aviator in the fleet, and he won the best aviator of the whole 7th Fleet patch. And that's voted on by the other aviators. And then he went to test pilot school, okay, where he graduated number 2. So we we hope that he gets that position, and then I'll be moving him again from Pensacola. Probably to on the base housing in Pax River, because the housing prices are kind of high right now for him. So I would appreciate that very much, because Christ tells us if two or more agree, and we definitely agree that. And he's an incredible pilot. He's only one of 4,100 and something graduates in the Navy Test Pilot School. That's this place. Yeah. Okay, so to be an instructor, he'd probably be one of only 200 instructors. No, I have a Odyssey account. OYDSE. I think it's Odyssey. Yeah. Okay. The reason why I'm Odyssey is blockchain. This will be on there, and nobody can take it down. Nobody can edit it. Nobody can do nothing except moi. Okay, and that's very important, because no matter what, it'll be up. Because if you didn't notice, our truckers have been circling Washington trying to get in there, and their First Amendment rights have been denied. Um, the BLM people had no problem protesting on Washington, burning things and whatever. These guys just want to address the White House and address Congress on laws that they do not agree with. You have that right. It's part of your rights in the Constitution. But this president and this administration says no, it's not. They're essentially in. Yes, I am. He says I'm not live. I'm live. Jim Foreman says I'm not live. Ask me a question, I'll answer it right now to prove I'm live. Yeah, sure. Oh, this is my picture. What my picture? Tyrannical and uncaring. Um, I I'm going to discuss the Ukraine and Putin. That's a very good. That's a very good description of Putin. Um, I think I'm not sure that this was Putin's idea. Totally. This is only my theory. I don't. I think that this might have been Xi Jinping's idea, because the person who made the most out of this, who got the most out of this and got the ahead of everybody, is China. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts that this made Russia a lot weaker. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts that it secured oil contracts for the next 35 years between Russia and China, which secured energy for China. Um, I think that this is, yeah, I don't think that the intelligence forces are that bad, that China would not knew that this was going to go this way. You could see it in the fever of these people that you're going after, and then the other defaulting to civilian targets. Hitler did this in World War II. That never works. What that does is it puts steel in people's backbone. It just galvanizes people that they want to fight to the death. Period. They are not going to stand for this. And then you're taking it to them. You're destroying everything they have. They got nothing to lose. I mean, think about it. You get distraught if you can't make your payment on your car, your heating bill, so you're worried about paying your money. These people just lost everything. They might have been working for 35 years on whatever that is. I mean, picture you're sitting here and all of a sudden there's missiles and stuff rain. You lose everything. If anything, this also shows us um, the value of our Second Amendment. Because remember, in 1791, the Second Amendment wasn't about hunting. Because if you didn't hunt in 1791, you did not eat. Okay? No, the Second Amendment is about tyranny. It's about disarmed people being marched into cattle cars and then marched into showers and killed and then put in ovens. It's about starved to death. It's about what they want to do now is they want to change the currency to the so-called cyber currency, their cyber currency, and then say we're not going to accept anything else. But I'm going to tell you something. There will always be bartering, always, because money is supposed to be an exchange for work and product. I mean, so if you wanted to get 200 years ago, if I was an apple pie maker and I was just making apple pies, I'd be going to Tom to get his apples. And then I'd be exchanging my pies for his, apples that he gave me. But also, the same thing. My ancestors, they were in the wood business. You could say they were in the energy business. They set up mills here. They set up mills in Vermont. There's streets and lakes named after the Ball family in Vermont. They built a lake and a dam, and they used it as a mill. And they cut lumber for many of the homes up there, but they also made firewood out of scraps. And they were doing this for trade. Okay. And back then, they didn't, in the 1640s, they traded not money. A lot of them traded different types of commodities because they were up in the mountains. So they bartered. That's what they did. And also, they used to lend out their milk to the local farmers on harvest to grind the different products into wheat and stuff like this. Okay. You have to look at what happened in the Ukraine. Back when Obama was president, he put in, or should I say, the CIA put in their president. The president that's there now is not the president that Obama installed. It's the president Trump was impeached on a conversation that he had with this president, congratulating him and talking about different types of things. As Trump says, it was a perfect rule. I don't think there's any perfect anything, okay, except for what God does. But certainly, compared to this president's stuff, including the conversations he's having with China today, I mean, whoa. I mean, oh, Jim Foreman, I'm trying to get it live. Give me another 37 users, and I will be able to do live show and really take your calls. If you're Pullman Pigeon, you have my number and answer you anything. It's not censored. Okay. And no, that's not for fornication or cursing things. That's for actually telling you things that it would be censored on this platform. I'm not kidding. I will not violate my oath, but short of that, I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Oh, yeah. Well, this transmission is going to be put onto Odyssey, but I tried to get Odyssey to work a couple times. The app is not. This is a Mac, and it's not. I don't think it's Mac friendly. The so I'm going to try again, but I'm going to do it via my phone, my Android phone. I have two phones. I have an iPhone and I have an Android phone. And I'm going to try on my Android phone to do a live show. And I think it's going to work. So I'm working on that, and I think that's definitely going to work, and it's going to be great, and you people are going to want to be in on it because again, I'll be able to talk about things that you guys really want me to talk about, but I can't. I'll tell you about my trip, and then we'll talk about what's really going on. I took a trip. It usually, what we do is we drive from here, which is Long Island, to Virginia. Our first day usually takes about 6 hours. Um, I do it in one tank. I stop for going to the bathroom, things like this. I basically don't stop in addition just for when I have to go to the bathroom. He has to go to the bathroom. That's the way service dogs are set up. So, yeah, but they didn't buy the blockchain. I own the blockchain. There's no difference in the blockchain than Bitcoin, than Ether. So if you own those coins, you own them. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody. I have the I have the hash code to them. Okay, no, I'm not going to show you the hash code. So and you can put data in them, and that's what the video is put into. Um. So anyway, we left about, I guess, about 11 o'clock. We found that's the best time to leave. It's like the ebb. My wife and I call it the ebb. So it's after rush hour going to the city, and it's before rush hour coming from the city. And man, we were out of here. We were out off of the in on the New Jersey Turnpike in an hour and a half. I mean, I didn't. There was no traffic, and no, I don't drive like a maniac. Even though my van has all kinds, but I wasn't even driving 60. That's how bad the roads here on the island. Okay, we have potholes on the Long Island Express. That's like interstate. I'm not kidding. They're 8 inches deep. They're about a foot and a half wide. I was doing everything to avoid them. I was literally in the HOV lane, driving like 57, okay, and trying to miss these holes. Couldn't wait to get. Once I get into New Jersey and on the New Jersey Turnpike, roads were good. And then I usually take it up to like 73, 74. The speed limit on there is 65. So I usually do about 8 to 9 miles over the speed limit, believing that's not fast. So everybody else going by on there. I'm just sitting in the right lane on the express line and in my cruise control. And yeah, I put my tires on. That's one thing I did do. I put 55 psi in my front uh, tires and 80 5 psi in my back, which is what I usually do if I'm going to tow heavy, heavy, heavy loads. That's what they recommend you do. I didn't. I wasn't towing it. I was just my son's, my grandson's, my all kinds of things that my wife, and this birthday present. Anyway, I was getting 25 to 28 miles per gallon. Yeah. And that's because since I made the change to the engine, oh, about 2 years ago, where I put in the injectors, I replaced them with the Ford. I put in OEM injectors, which are International Harvester injectors. That's really a school bus engine. It really is. It's a 7.3 school bus engine, which were on all those big yellow school buses at the time. And I put in a bigger turbo. I mean, a real turbo. And Yeah, it runs so much better. I mean, wow. Tremendous amounts of horsepower. I mean, unbelievable. And my torque went through the roof. I put out like 750 foot-pounds of torque. I have to watch it because my transmission's not really not up to anything over 635. So if I went down to the floor, there'd be nothing but metal behind me. I'd just blow the transmission all to pieces. So they make a training as a place A1 trainings in Georgia that make trainings. They redo them, but they want $9,000. So yeah, that's gonna happen, but it's gonna wait. So right now, I just I go easy on it, and yeah, but the load was less than because it tells me everything on my display. The load was like 13%. It was nothing. It's just my wife and me and my dog and my bags and stuff. Which the gross mass weight for that van is like 27.5. It can pull, so it's like nothing. Okay, and I got incredible. I mean, I was getting 550 miles out of three-quarters of a tank of diesel, which was incredible. Um, and it was good because the cheapest I was able to find diesel was in Virginia for 389. Okay, and by the time I got up here, last fill up was 525. I put a tank in for it cost me $120. Yeah, crazy expensive. So unfortunately, I was right about that, and yeah. Um, I tried live on Odyssey 2 weeks ago. I tried at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it ran its wrong. Code's not. It's just not up to par. Um, you have to understand. I wrote machine code. Um, I was an OEM for Apple and Motorola and HP. 37 years. I was a systems core engineer programmer, which means I did all the stuff to make the hardware work. And none of my code ever crashed, ever corrupted data, ever. To this day, it's still running. A lot of it's still running. And it's probably why I'm so fat. Because I was really obsessive as far as my quality control. I used to get calls from Steve. Is it ready yet? The man with the worst hygiene on the planet, by the way. He was really a hippie at heart. And yeah, my stuff. I don't know how many gigoules of data, gigabit, whatever. But nope, never crashed. And of course, because of machine code, it ran way more efficiently than any type of other design because I was able to do things that people just don't still to this day understand. But you have to understand, I've been doing this since I was 7. So I had a little practice at it. Machine code, which is below C. So basically, that you you have to really know the actual. I mean, I used to program the PAL chips, and I programmed a lot of the kernel drivers, a lot of stuff that makes hardware work, including your iPhone, things like that. Um, yeah, I'm the author of the SA3 code. That's the analog to digital analog converter. Anyway, it takes an understanding of how stupid and pathetic this actual technology is. I mean, it's really just a souped up adding machine. It just knows how to add. That's it. The arithmetic is handled by the arithmetic logic unit, which is really just bunch of tables that are indexed that it looks up the values of that are already pre-calculated and put onto the chip. Yep. So, for example, like if you're from New York and you in the 70s, I don't know what they do now, but if you took the New York State regions at the back of the book back then, the cosine, tangent, and sine tables and go to all that stuff was written at the back of the book too. I think it was 8 significant digits that they had these tables printed at. In the ALU, it's 214. It's limited to 14. Programs like Mathematica and other types of things do funny analog algorithms that basically they're more like digital slide rules per se. I'm trying to use analogies, not to keep it complicated for those who don't care. To be able to look up the specific function of a specific value, like a natural logarithm, to come up with a much higher value. I mean, of accuracy. In most scientific calculations, 14 is nowhere near accurate enough to be able to do really any decent science. But it's more than adequate for all financial most people and things like this. But if you want to do like, for example, SDR rendering or game shepherd and things like that, they actually write their own SQRs within the actual video card, and they have dedicated memory, dedicated video processors, dedicated way of handling the polynomials to be able to put onto the screen instructions that come from the object limiter that sounds like in a game or something like this. This has a graphic card in it too, even though it's a one built-in computer. The stuff that I'm seeing on the screen is actually done by separate graphic processors, not done by the Intel processor that's running the Mac, which is I think it's an i7. Wasn't there. I haven't gone in it. I shall see. Okay. This is my Odyssey page. I'm scrolling through it. Mhm. Yeah, right here. Yeah. I did that. That's me. Sorry about that. There it is. See? JFK 911. See it? It's 2 hour, 3 hours. It's 3 hours. 3 hours. Everything's on here. So I'll show you items that were taken off. Here's another 911 thing. Building 7 collapsing. See it? That's on. This is my Odyssey page. Oops. I have my baby back rib recipe. Carl Vincent guy. My stuff, bad stuff on silver, right? Holding up the silverware. Everything's there. It's stuff. And what I was telling you guys to do, okay? I was telling you, um, one of the last times, you know who was invisible, right? Like I said, I haven't seen him since San Andreas, I think. Oh my, this is blocked from this platform. The green agenda put which goes into a lot of things that are going. Um, yeah. Well, it's been changed to Odyssey. You know, it's been magically changed. If you go to my library page, it immediately takes you to my Odyssey page. I'll try to hold on a second. Try to copy address. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna post that here. Yeah, it came through. Okay. So if you click on that, you'll get to my Odyssey thing. If you want to see my Patreon page, Patreon. That's the only way I make money on my Patreon. That's what supports me. Uh, so my Patreon site is like this is one that I just did. A Patreon site. Like, so definitely asking, and thank you very much for joining my Patreon site and supporting me in my endeavors. I really appreciate it. Um, so everything's there. I just checked it. Um, if you're on an iOS platform, the Odyssey app is kind of quirky. You can just go through your Firefox and go directly to the website. If you're on Android, it works better. No question about it. The Odyssey app, that's what I was trying to use. It has problems on Macs, but it's Max is a lot of people don't understand what Mac is. Mac is really a Unix machine. It's a Unix 5 machine, really. It's just running with a GUI interface. A graphic user interface is basically running on top of the actual Unix 5 kernel. That's really what it is. I mean, that's how Bill Gates made his money. It's basically just essentially he his friend Paul Allen basically took MS DOS for 50,000. I didn't steal it, but they didn't exactly tell the truth. The guy wrote MS DOS, and they didn't sell it to IBM. They licensed it for their IBM PC, their operating system, quick and dirty, and they did it. Same thing with BASIC. BASIC they took from major universities, Berkeley, and BASIC. It was public. It was public domain. It's BASIC stands for Beginners All-Purpose Symbolic Construction Code, and so it was a code that was developed by I forget two guys, two professors, and they did it as a way to bring students into the world of computing with a very easy programming language to get them started. So, for example, if you wanted to write a program that just said print hello, whatever, it's if then basic logic statements and stuff. You literally wrote if then, and very wordy, not very fast, but very functional. Okay. And then other people came out with those called basic compilers, which basically takes your basic instruction code and then compiles it into a much more efficient code, such as like C or better, but not well. It's a higher than C because it's a little bulky. It's got to optimize itself for all that stuff, but still, it's better than running an interpreted basic program on top of the instruction that it's running on. It's called compiled. Okay, COBOL is language like that. The scientific language Pascal is like that. Um, Fortran is like that. Um, but C is one. That was my language. Not C plus, not C plus plus. I call it C Bob plus. um, because what would happen is through the years, I wrote like a five subject notebook, and I literally have it downstairs of all kinds of routines and object libraries. But because it was written in standard C, I could port it from system to system. If I wanted to run it on an IBM 38, I could do it at 59. I could do it on 4000. I could do it on anything. And I used to keep it on a disk and bring it from machine to machine. So whatever I did, I had that, and I would simply just write the code and bring in my libraries. It was very things that you don't want to do again and again. Like I could never program. By the time I hit 1987, I could never program in a standard language. I was really that's what C gave me. It gave me my own language that my own menus, my own everything, sorting routines, all the things that you use on a regular basis, how to handle different types of things. And then, of course, my machine code would then be written to the specific overlays of whatever the hardware specifically was. So if I was running a PAL chip, a count, I'll give a simple one. That's it's a program or a logarithm chip. Okay, so it's going to do a specific function on some kind of input. Okay, so you could take a I'll just use a 5 megahertz crystal, and you want a specific output from that crystal to be a specific pulse that's going to cycle and give you a clock rate to do something at a specific time. I would do stuff like that. Okay. So it would be good for setting the PLL on the top of the drive surface for writing the actual tracks that actually keep where the head is. The head works on a kind of voice coil, and the PLL is the track that tells exactly where it is. The first surface is really just to keep the heads in line, and data surfaces are the other surfaces that are on the platter. And you have sectors and all that kind of stuff. Most everything today is done by SSDs, which are they're limited. They will wear out over basically like 150,000, 250,000 cycles of use. That's a physical degradation of the gate. Um, Theoretically, if you put in a specific type of oscillating field, you should be able to reset them, reset this. But you'd have to, I guess, you'd have to wrap the SSD with, let's see, one, two, three, four, four wraps of wires, and then oscillate the fields on each. Yeah. Well, there was an some of the languages were basically what I call self-documentary, which means You had a tremendous amount of programs that did not have access to terminals. If you worked for IBM, for example, you went in there and you had to fill out a DDS sheet. Okay, you used to fill out your program on this sheet, and then you take it to a keyboardist. Okay, and this girl, it was usually women, and they would type it up and it would punch it out on cards. They would hand you the stack of cards. You would take the cards, and then you would take that and you'd run it into the compiler. It would then take that and then generate whatever the code is going to be, whether it's going to be on tape, or whether it's going to be in punch tape, or whether it's just going to be in card form. But it's going to be in that thing. And then there was it was you have to when I started there was scientific machines. This was back in like 67, 68. So everything was punch tape, cards. Our drive was just, and it was big. It was um, I think it was a 12-inch platter, and it was 5 megabytes, and the entire computer RAM. It was only 16 registers, and the RAM was 32 kilobytes. Yeah, and it was a paper tape machine. I read the paper with a laser beam that shone light through holes on the paper that was read as digital data. Yeah. Yep. And I was a fiend back then and making backups of everything, which means as soon as I would finish a program tape, I would immediately, okay, I mean immediately make a copy of that and immediately then take that and put it away as a master and make a copy of the copy and make another copy of the copy. Yeah. And then I wouldn't, no, we had a job to run. I would make a working job copy. I would take the job, put it in the thing, make a copy of it, put that back in the cabinet, and then use this as a working tape for the job. Yeah, crazy, but worked. And it took nothing to do. Back then, to make a copy of a job that would take 3 hours to drill, it would take 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and it took maybe 2, 3 days to set the job up. Okay. I know, buddy. Buddy got a new bed. You got a new bed. You got a new bed. You like it. You like it. He got a new bed. I got one from Orvis. So, yeah, I mean, my brother in law knows COBOL because he worked for Chase. So he used to sit there. I hated it. Okay. I worked for Merrill for the first, I guess I worked for First United, then Merrill, and I was doing I was doing side jobs. I was doing, this is what you do. I was 22 years old, just married, and I was working as many jobs as I could get because I was living in an apartment which cost me $750 a month to rent and had cockroaches. And all I would do is, I want to get out of there to get a house, you know, and that was my goal. So, but the interest rates were insane. This was 1982. Everything was insane. I used to celebrate. My wife and I celebrated when we could fill my full 42 with a full tank. So I was thankful just to have a job, really. And so to be flown in a helicopter from Garden City to Lower Manhattan to work on stuff, I was thrilled that I was in that kind of demand, um, because I didn't say no. I didn't give them bargain prices or nothing. But my work was what it was. So um, and I was fearless. I mean, I got a call once from EF Hutton, and this was on a Friday, and they had a problem with the AP 105, which is the accounts payable for the entire month. No, I think this was Merrill. Anyway, um, so I drive in there, and what happened was against SOP, which is standing operating procedure, they had one of the big supercomputer IBMs down, and there was some idiot made a mistake, and basically they were going to lose the floor, and by the time I got there, in less than 20 minutes, which means the other computer was going to crash and it was going to be a disaster. And it's a cascade because you have a one floor CPUs, you have another floor drives, you have another floor of tape libraries, another floor printing. I mean, this is the way it was then. It's all inside a big vault. Okay. And there's a man trap you have to go into, which means you have to put your hand down and you're locked in this thing. So if it's not you, you're they just it doesn't open and they just come and get you. So um so they have a guy that actually works for IBM, and he's there all the time. Okay, and he's so what I mean. I'm like, this guy was the head of the thing. He's just like, I don't care what you got to do, just do it because we're all gonna get fired. I'm like, okay. So I literally start pulling the panel off this mainframe that's down. Okay, it's a supercomputer. It's mainframe that's down. And the guy from IB, he's just like, I guess I'll take dinner now, I'll leave. And I asked Steve to go get me some tapes, and Charlie, we're literally throwing tapes across the floor. And I'm putting the leader into a bucket like this. And I'm going through the thing, I'm using my jump elites, I'm literally hot wiring this thing. And then I put Charlie on this valve. It's a Freon valve because these things have to be cooled, but you can't put the Freon in. You have to do it at the right time. It's a long story. It usually takes anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours to IPL the machine. Okay, to do what's known as initial program load and start the thing running. I did it in less than 10 minutes, and there was a point where the whole floor was rumbling because the Freon was going in and literally boiling in the machine, and they're like, "Oh, you're young, you no fear." So we were, yeah, and so we got up and running. We carried the floor, and the other one crashed, and then I proceeded to um, do the proper restart on the other one and fix the error problems that these idiots had because they screwed up on the environmental files. Long story. Every program has a header of stuff that's supposed to be in the system when the job runs, and it's a long story. Anyway, okay. So it took me X amount of time to initial program load that. Then I had to shut the other one down because it was not really designed to do what it was doing. So then I shut that down, then put everything back together again, and then produce that one. Okay. So I went in there Friday. Okay. I didn't come home. I wasn't driving home till Monday morning. Okay. I left Monday about like, I don't know, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And by the time I hit, back then it used to be these big gas tanks and stuff on the Long Island Expressway. I started seeing my hood dissolve in front of me because I I didn't have any sleep, and I can't tell you how much caffeine, cokes, you name it, I ate. Okay, coffees, and it was fine. It was finally catching up to me, and I just barely made it home to Hempstead and got into the apartment, and I just collapsed. I made Okay, I made almost $30,000 um, those days in the service that I provided and the consulting I did. So yeah, fearless. Now, could it have gone wrong? Whoa, so many ways. But it was kind of like all or nothing, literally all or nothing, because it was going to be disaster. Okay, a disaster, and it wasn't. One time I remember when I was on a SWAT team for Merrill, and we got the AP 105. Anytime we get it running before 9 o'clock, that's the entire accounts payable for Merrill Lynch. The vice president in charge of computer operations would come down with a whole bunch of pizzas and calzones and beer. we we throw the beer into the floor because the floor was chilled, and it was a lot of fun. Are you guys still there? I don't see any talk on this thing. Best. Um, yeah. So by the time '87 rolled around, I had really moved above language, as it were. I didn't have the hard. I was always modifying hardware. I mean, I had modified my old Model 3 TRS-80. I mean, when I got that computer, I literally took it apart and started rebuilding it and making it and rewriting the operating system, everything. And really, for every single machine that I dealt with, from everywhere from on Guiding Light with Lisa and the Macs and everything else I had to do work on scripts and do things. I had to do things that were possible. Everybody thought, oh, it's possible, but they were not out there yet. Okay. Case in point, on the hospital scene, I wrote a code that basically took X-rays and put them on the screen and allowed the actor to manipulate them and with the mouse and do things. And this was back in 1984. Hello, and there was a guy from John Hopkins that called me up, and because your name comes up on the credits, so it says computer consulting, Bob Wall on the credits of the show. And he looked me up and he's like, "You Bob Wall? Bob Wall?" I'm like, yes. He says, "The X-ray it's great, great, fantastic. Gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it." I'm like, okay, I'm glad you like the show, but this is a fictional show. This technology doesn't exactly exist, and we're just doing things and blah blah. Yeah, 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 yeah. But I saw it. I saw it on the show. Yeah, it's great, great. Got it. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. So anyway, he invites me down, and I wrote this program for them that basically started everybody on doing these X-rays and everything on the computer, because of my experience with everything from Tron to Robert Abel and Associates and other types of RATS scan stuff that I had worked on in the television video field for doing computer animation and doing commercials and rock videos and cars videos and stuff like that, providing an engine that did all that crap. Okay. I ended up working and taking that same technology and applying it to a real problem. That got them interested to where then I was called by the American Medical Association to a conference out at the MGM, which was the last time, by the way, I was out in Vegas. And I'm like now. I had to give a lecture why you want microcomputers in your medical office and what they can do for you. Um, Back then, in front of 5,000 physicians. Whoa, was I nervous? I was forget about it. I was now when I opened the floor up for questioning, okay, I was able to because each individual person was asking me a question. I was able to joke about it. I was able to answer the question, and the whole thing went on a lot longer. A person who was in, I did not know this at the time, in on the whole thing because I had brought Max to it and everything else was Steve Jobs, and that's how I got associated with Apple. Amazing how that all works, isn't it? That's fun. So, yeah. And then I was called to a studio, and I had always dabbled in audio stuff for myself, music, things like this, and really making recordings better for myself so that I wouldn't go crazy in my car in rush hour traffic. I had this beautiful JBL stereo with surround sound in my Lincoln, and I used to make these customized mixtapes, which were quadraphonic, and they were remixed from these masters, CDs mostly, which were just terrible. And so I would use all my computer knowledge to take them apart. So a studio called me, they were having some problem. My cousin knew who they were, and he said this guy will come in and fix it. And they were again Mac based, and it was everything was wrong. Everything was he was saying he was saying the hardware likes to do stuff like this because it likes to do. I'm like, no, no, no. Hardware doesn't know anything. It doesn't like it. Things. The reason why I was doing this was because of the cable lengths and the resistance. And I was trying to explain this to them. I redid the whole thing, and they were in my car, and we were going. This is when I met John Tobacco and Nick Demaro, and my cousin sent me one of their tapes, but she wanted the tape back, so I had to copy it. But I didn't want to, I don't just copy things, so I took it and remixed it. That's just what I do. Um, so I remixed the tape and made it for my car because I have this unique sound profile. It's like my car. So they're in the car, and John finds his tape with his name in the back. He's like, uh, uh, I never gave you tape. I put it in, and they're listening to it, and they mixed the thing, and they're both looking at each other like, it's us, but it's not us because we didn't mix this because it's. He even said they're like, it's better, and that's what got me involved with John. And I was bringing in my entire collection of stuff. And how's my computer coming? I'm stuck on how to start it. So I can't really build it unless I figure out how to start it because starting it is part of the initial design. I always design things running. I had the same problem with my SA3 system. My SA3 was ended up being almost 288 processors and like a ball configuration. And I had it didn't start out that way. Start out with 60 processors, but they were working in parallel with the same essentially notebook. I had a problem with them uh, starting as well, and then I figured it out. So I was hoping I'd get somebody calling me who has some kind of knowledge about Fourier translations and other kinds of I put calculus up for the Max Planck length. Anyway, no, didn't get anything. Um, so it's kind of hard for me to explain if you don't really understand what different types of quantum states are, if you don't even understand how a laser works and how harmonic interference works with as a laser propagates through a crystal, there's a first and second harmonic that's generated. And I put all that into my Patreon page. I published um, um, everything but the key stuff on my Patreon site, hoping I get some kind of buy. I got a guy from Arizona who was a mathematician, but he even said the stuff was above him. Um, and I never say that I'm a mathematician. Um, I'm a computer scientist and maybe a physicist, but and I do understand some math. But the kind of stuff that I need now is like it's like figuring out four functions within one function, and that's yeah. So it's a very hard thing because something has to start the indices, and it has to be done exactly at the same literally quantum moment. And I understand how to do that when it's running. I don't know how to do that to start it from running. So I have to design a system just to do that. Kind of like you have to design a starter just to start an engine. So, um, oh, magnetics. Well, uh, I got one better for you. You don't even have to go to David W. You don't have to work that hard. Okay, so hold on. All right, I'll explain to you something about here's this is free energy, but it's not really free. Okay, which means it's how the sun works. It's really how everything works. Okay, and essentially it's a side effect. Now, a long time ago, I solved. I also published this. I solved for gravity, and I found out that there's a relationship between gravity and the acceleration of matter. Okay, so for example, if you substitute the centripetal acceleration in for g, and you'll find the ratios on that. It's published. Why? Um, we're on a big 2001 space station that is rotating in space, and it's rotating fast enough to generate 1g. That's the same gravity on this planet. I put it to you, if you had no windows or whatever and you was just sitting there in the chair, you would not know, or any, you would not be able to tell that you're up there. You would have no idea. It would be the same. Everything would act the same. Um, Everything. Okay. Maybe your time dilation would be a little bit different because of the actual radius of the arm of the space. We're not going to go there. Basically the gravity is essentially the same. Okay, so um, I'm going to give you a simple example of a system that will work. Okay, so if you have a 55-gallon drum and you fill that up with a bladder, a bag, okay, of water, and you put a platform on it that's got grease on the outside. So it's free to push on that bag. Okay. You have a 3/4 inch hose at the bottom of that tank, which is hooked up to the bag contents. The bag contents is just simple H2O water. Okay. And that runs up to a shower over your head. Okay. You stand on the platform because your physical weight is greater than the amount of weight of water in the hose. It starts raining on your head. We understand this. Okay, this is okay. Now there's friction that's involved. Friction of the bladder, friction of the fluid in a hose. The turbulence of that friction, by the way. And you want to increase that turbulence. For example, if you're heating that fluid in a solar radiator, which means it's running in a pipe, there's ways to do that so that the fluid is turbulent, not laminar. Laminar will only heat the outside molecules. Turbulence will actually heat the whole fluid. But I digress. But in this, we don't care. We want good laminar flow, smooth, less drag. Okay, and that's going to come down in your head. Now let's picture, instead of my head, I am holding another 55-gallon drum. What will happen is that entire body of fluid will be pumped out and put over my head, all 750 pounds of it, essentially putting the water back to the top of the waterfall. You're saying, oh, but you know, that's not free energy. Well, put an axis through it, put a few of them together, and you can see that can be a rotating object. Furthermore, you can do it very, very simple in a fish tank. They sell this. They sell this in all kinds of fish tank stores. It's like it's like a vertical first wheel bucket thing. Okay, that air pumps into the bottom of it, and it goes up, and then dumps the air out and goes down. You're saying, oh, so what? Well, what if that system was made bigger and it was a instead of in a fish tank, it was in a column of water, it was bigger, and the power for that air pump was generated in a hose and generated outside, and the torque from that thing of doing that was captured and put into a compressor system. You'll find out that that actually works, and they banned that video from YouTube. That was on YouTube, and they banned it. Now, the key to this, those two systems have the same thing involved. It's the same thing that makes the sun do what it's doing. It's the same thing that makes our fission that's going on a planet do what it's doing. It's called gravity. Okay, gravity is putting acceleration, a force specifically on those molecules on the sun, holding that hydrogen atoms, protons together till they fuse. When they fuse, they put out tremendous amounts of energy. That energy is then transmitted. Usually takes anywhere between, they don't know, between 100,000, maybe a million, maybe less, to get from the inner core of the sun to the outside photosphere. Okay, but essentially, if you did not have that gravity, you would not have that fusion. How we do this in other terms of fusion that is present right now. There's what's known as called the compact fusion reactor, which is put out by Lockheed. The source has to be a pure hydrogen proton source of tritium, and that is very energy intensive to make, which means this thing doesn't put out more energy than it makes because it takes more energy to make the fuel than it makes. But that's not why they made it, because it's in the shape and the size, and that's why it's called compact fusion. I was no bigger than a J85 jet engine, and that's exactly what it's supposed to replace because it generates so much power that it actually produces enough bypass to where it's going to turn a turbine that's going to create thrust and then propel an aircraft. That's why it was invented. Um, well, they radio. Well, yeah, um, they are radioactive within their range of gamma that comes off of that kind of reaction, but there's no there's helium, there's other isotopes. There's no real uh, after effects unlike fission where you're taking uranium or whatever and you're splitting it into other radioactive isotopes that have to beta decay. This is fusion. So really you end up with heliums that go for the upper atmosphere, really have no effect on us down here. Theoretically, if you got it hot enough, you can make carbon, but it's not going to get that hot. Not going to do it. It's going to just make helium, and they it's so controlled they can control it. Puts an insane amount of power. Insane. Um, but then the fuel takes an insane amount of power to make. So they have that. They have another fusion reactor, which is off right next to MIT. They built it's a tokamak, and that runs on helium 3. There are no natural sources of helium 3 here on the planet. It happens to be 2.2 metric million tons of the stuff on the moon. The first 6 inches of the soil contains 4 billion years of it from the sun, byproduct from the sun. So to tell you how energy dense that is, like 700 pounds of that would power the planet for like a year. And I mean the whole planet. Okay. And we brought back on the Apollo, we brought back 650 pounds of rock each time. So we could do it. Well, we could set up robots to mine it and everything else. Why is it not being done? Why are they not using lifters? You can look that up. Why are they not using thorium? Why they're not, using radioactive lifter 49s that will take radioactive waste and make power and take that radioactive waste and make it a simple harmless salt. Oh, why was she not prosecuted for destroying a public record when Trump gave his State of the Union speech, and why was she not doing that with Biden? I mean, there is if you didn't notice, Jesse Smalls, all these other things. It's showing that there is literally two justice systems. There's a justice for you and me, and there's a justice for them. It's very simple. I mean, all these Russian oligarchs with so-called their yachts were taken, and everything else. That's baloney. They all ran to Panama, and they were all down in Panama having good times and mai tais and whatever. They took the yachts and went whatever. If you don't think that they have other bank accounts besides the ones that they so-called show the public, you know, come on, you guys know better than that. You know better than that. Anyway, I want you guys to have a good weekend. Any other questions before I get off? Um, as far as what's going to happen with this war in Ukraine, something that you guys don't know. They've moved 10 times more troops into Europe, and they've moved um, a lot of Navy into Australia and the Philippines. And yeah, so they they want this because they see what's happening. So the only way they can hide their crimes of theft is to create a war. And then after the war is over, then nobody ever talks about, well, who took this gold and what happened to it and why did you only pay this 10 cents on the dollar for it, which is what they did before World War II, right? If you don't think Franklin Delano Roosevelt knew that they were going to steal from you, come on. And last, I'll give you a howl from Max right here. Come on, Max. Howling! Woo! 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 Howling! Woo! Howling! Howling! Anyway, God bless everybody. And I'm glad you showed up here. Glad to be back. Glad I made a safe trip. Glad my grandsons are good. My son is good. I really hope you guys pray for my eldest son to get that teaching position at Navy Test Pilot School in Pax River. It's the only way that these people who took over in 1903 can again hide this. They've done it before. And each time there was a reset and they won. They won that reset and you paid the price. You had to do your rationing. You're going to be on gas lines. You're going to be on food. You're going to go and see no bread on the shelves. You're going to see these insane prices. You're going to see a world in recession again, and these people are going to capitalize on all the debt and pay it off with worthless dollars. And they're going to get even richer, maybe even double their worth again. And you're going to get even poorer. I mean, you think about each time it's happened, it used to be one man, one woman working. I mean, then it was just one man working and a woman, and then each time. So what happened? Now you have both parents have to work, both parents have to earn money, both parents have to, look for daycare and all that kind of stuff and whatever. And you have families living with their parents, and it's just going to get worse. You're going to have people down to one car, won't be able to afford to have two cars, to drive two cars, to maintain two cars. And then they're telling you, oh, to spend $60,000 on an electric car. Where are you going to charge to drive it from here to Texas? Just driving from here to Maryland. Okay, that one thing they don't show you is that the robber rates and the crime is up big time. What are they doing? Here's a person sitting in a charger. They got to sit there for an hour and a half. What do you think's happening to them? People are robbing them and stealing the cars. They come with a flatbed and they flatbed it away and they steal it right in front of everybody. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Anyway, one of these days I'm gonna try to do a live on Odyssey. I'm gonna do a recording at Jake's 58 to show you how um, well, you'll see. And then, but I have to block out the audio because I'll hit the copyright violations from Hack. I'll have to make a recording and I'll have to overdub it with my thing and take out that audio and tell you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I'll provide it to my Patreon people. I'm going to do that just for my Patreon crowd. So if you want to be able to, and this type of machine is everywhere. Okay, so I found a little slice, and that's only because of my programming and my computer background. I actually took the code, ran it on my system to 100 million hands, took all that data through a database, and then the computer determined what the best actual play is in all the permutations for each hand that the dealer has against your hand that you have, and further on, which means what to do even after you get two cards and things like this. It gives you a point two advantage over the house. Not much, but it's something, you know. Anyway, instead of being 0.58 to the house, that's usually what it is. Anyway, God bless you guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.